Okay, let me ask you this. You guys doing hoppers? How many of you have done DDG before? How many of you have had problems unloading DDG before? That's all of us. And it can differ. I know moisture level, outside temperature, and all these things can be factors. But have you ever unloaded DDG that you had to unload yourself, that didn't have outside machines come in and work in air or anything like that, that you had to unload by yourself, that you ever considered pretty easy? Now, what I'm going to tell you that I discovered through another driver at Oakley, I didn't find a super easy way to do it, but I sure found a more efficient way to do it. And I'm going to show you the tool that I got. The straw that broke the camel's back for me on DDG was a few weeks ago when it was about 100 degrees outside. I loaded this stuff and it was hot when I loaded, so I knew it was going to suck when I got there. I had to hold it overnight. It was the first truck to try to unload in Russellville. And of course, I get under there when I start trying to unload in the morning, and it's a solid brick. You've been there, you've done that, you know what I'm talking about. Long story short, on that day, me and two other drivers, out of the kindness of their hearts and the fact that they probably wanted to get empty too, came up and started helping me. And the helping consisted of basically digging from underneath with some shovels and metal rods they had and that sort of thing, and hammering the shit out of it. And in 100 degree heat, let me tell you, I don't last long. I'm not a young man anymore, and even young men are gonna get wore out swinging a hammer for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. And this stuff was especially sticky. So, but they helped me. I got out of there, and I just like, I can't do this. I got to figure out something else. And one of the other drivers, David, that does the same route I do, told me about this machine he got, and we got it, and this is the story. This is it. Concrete vibrator. It's just some Chinese brand, I'm sure. Flexible tube, that hose, 6.5 feet long. Last 1.5 feet there is that steel cylinder. Okay, so that's what it is. All right, we're just going to use Gary's trailer here for demonstration purposes. So when you're loading DDG, that little bottom baffle right down there is the one you always got to start working on, and using your mallet on, that sort of thing, start breaking it up, because your goal is at the inside of this angle on this hopper is to create some space where that vibrator will start working. So as you know, if you don't know, if you got a product that's hard to come out like DDG, soy meal, cottonseed meal, that sort of thing, a gap has to be made at the bottom of that area in the hopper where the door's at, to create some space where when the vibrator's put to it, or you're knocking it or whatever, there's more vibration that actually happens throughout the trailer and, you know, shocks the product and it ends up coming down. DDG is one of those products, when it's really solid, the vibrator does nothing, and it really just takes brute force with a hammer, acorn mallet or something like that, to knock on those knock rails on the side until you create a space. Well, my worst case scenario happened to me about 3 weeks ago, where me and another driver, two drivers actually, at Tyson and Russellville, we worked on my truck for 3 hours, just hammering away at it, and digging out from underneath it, because it was kind of just so solid, and it was just hard to eat up, just chunking out bits at a time. So using that concrete vibrator, getting underneath it, moving the product around, because it'll just shave it off. You know, it takes a little time. And when I say a little time, 5 minutes, to make you a good cavity under there, and then we started vibrating, and it comes out. So I'm gonna get back in my pickup here, and we'll talk to you about what happened. Okay, so this is my experience with the machine. Now, I did use it on soy meal, kind of did the same thing, dug it out from underneath, fell pretty fast, but I was still skeptical about the DDG. So loaded the DDG in Madison, Illinois, drove about 6 hours down to Pine Bluff, had to wait a couple hours to get it off, and then I was able to start unloading it. The best I've ever done on DDG is about an hour and a half, working on front, getting it to drop, and kind of just continually working on the front until it's off. Then I'll work on the back, blah, blah, blah. So what I did on this one, because Pine Bluff's one of those places where you can open up both hoppers at once, even though with DDG it usually doesn't do any good because you can only work on one at a time because they just don't, it just doesn't fall. You open the door, nothing falls out. Excuse me. So when I get there, I weighed in, and then I did the following things. Got the concrete vibrator out, got it plugged in, got my extension cord plugged in, all that stuff because it required extension cord, and got my vibrator system ready to go, hooked it up to their air because their air is a lot better, has more pressure, and so the vibrator works better. Then I immediately just started working on the underneath part of the DDG. It starts making me a nice cavity in there, blah, blah, blah. And once I had a good cavity, I kind of just shoved up the size till I get to like basically where the hilt, where the power part is, 4 or 5 times. And then I started the vibrator. And I could see it flowing. Hadn't fallen yet, but it started flowing. I said, well, I'm just gonna let the vibrator work on that for a minute. So I moved to the back and did the same thing. By the time I started getting it into flow in the back, doing the same method, the front fell. And the front started flowing well, so I removed my vibrator off that, put it to the back, then 2 minutes, that starts falling. So by the time I got all the product out, got all my equipment unhooked, back in my truck, time in on the scale, time out of the scale, 37 minutes. I'd say it worked. So this is a game changer for me. You guys that do DDG all the time, or you have DDG and you have problems, this is something that really works. There's some places that have, you know, high pressure air they put in there that makes it fall out pretty quick. But if it's all on you and all by yourself, this really works. Either, you know, I have one that's, you know, that is electrical and need a power outlet. I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on a battery operated one until I figured it out. But I have an inverter in my truck, and the inverter operates it just fine. Tyson did let me use an outlet there, so I didn't have to worry about that. But you know, they have battery, they have cordless options too. Now they're more expensive. That one I have costs about $100 on Amazon. The cheapest cordless one I've seen looks like it's about $350. But if $350 was my only option, I'd still buy it, just because of the time saving. You know, 3 hours compared to 30 minutes, that tool literally pays for itself in 2 loads. So anyway, game changer, concrete vibrator, you're welcome. And shout out to David, one of the other Oakley drivers who told me about it. So there you go. All right, till next time, you guys take it easy.